All right, I want to thank you all for coming. This is a demonstration debate from some of the members of Debate League, a brand new program that started in the fall of last year. Today we're going to show kind of a modified version of public forum debate. Public forum debate is the kind of debate that is based on current events, and there are actually normally two speakers on each side giving two speeches each. But because we had more interest, we decided we'll modify it a little bit, so we have three speakers having a chance on each side.
Turn the microphone. Wait.
Testing.
Testing, testing.
There we go.
Leave it here. Hopefully it'll add a little volume to the room. The resolution today that we are debating, that our teams are debating, is resolved. Homeschooling in the United States should be banned due to lack of socialization. As you all know, this is such a common concern that people bring up during conversations with homeschoolers. So we thought it'd be kind of fun to bring up a more formal setting to discuss this and present evidence and so on. Speaking on the pro side, in favor of banning homeschooling, we have the pro team made of Trinity, Alex, and Timothy. Trinity will be giving the constructive. That's the case, basically your case for your side. And then Alex will then we'll hear from the other side here. We have Chase and Price and Victor. So then we'll hear Chase's case. So we hear both cases. And after that, it's a matter of pointing out the flaws in each other's cases, kind of reinforcing what came up in your case, and that's done by the rebuttalists, which are in the middle. And then, oftentimes, or generally, there will be a summary speaker and then a final focus speaker, but we've kind of combined those two in our last speakers. So that would be first hearing from the pro side, Timothy, and then finally Victor. These teams have competed in various tournaments. Alex here was a winner of both our Winter Classic and our Speakers League Annual Meet Debate tournaments. So he's a multi-trophy winner. This is Price's last opportunity to debate before he graduates age-wise out of the system. So he's our oldest one here at 18, and our youngest, I would imagine, here is Chase. Chase, how old are you? 12. 12. All right, nobody here younger than 12? All right. So you can kind of see a range of kids, and that's how homeschooling is. So they all learn from each other. We tend to meet twice a month during the school year from September to May, and we have some flyers outside if you think your kids might be interested. So let's go ahead and begin. The constructive speakers will present their cases for 4 minutes each. It's common for the audience to clap, but you'll find that the group up here will tend to not to show their approval as a form of applause. That's typical of debate. So let's hear first from Trinity.
Please talk into the microphone, by the way. It won't pick you up otherwise.
You know, they've got to have their hands free.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Trinity, and today I'm going to be arguing on the resolution homeschooling should be banned in the United States due to the lack of socialization. Let's define socialization for the purposes of this debate. Socialization simply is the process of learning to interact appropriately with other members of society. Learning these skills at home, at school and home do not need to be seen as either or choice for parents. A combination of the two offers the best result. We intend to outline and demonstrate that the school environment, combined with family experiences, provides the best overall result in learning how to interact appropriately with people, and that a home learning environment alone leaves gaps in societal and cultural success. My first contention is that the United States, home learning without the school experience reduces the overall number of socialization experiences. Every school child home learns to, in the morning, evenings, weekends, vacation, and summer break. Schools provide an additional place to learn how to communicate and develop friendships with others, handle peer conflicts, respect adult authority, and learn the rules of society. By interacting with children in their own age range, School kids learn from each other and grow their skills incrementally year by year, seeing what works and what doesn't. Without the school component, children are robbed of a shared cultural experiences and sense of community provided by having had the school experience. My second contention is that the addition of the school experience to the home experience provides children greater exposure to diverse populations, experiences, and challenges. One in itself is more reflective of actual society. Children build character, resilience, and tolerance for others when they are exposed to a diversity of people and viewpoints beyond their own socioeconomic, racial, and religious backgrounds. Schools draw from diverse populations, giving children a chance to understand the needs and concerns of people who may be unlike themselves. My third contention is that some parents are not equipped to provide children with a well-rounded social or educational experience. We agree that most parents have the best intentions for their children's education and socialization. However, not every parent can offer the breadth of knowledge of teachers with master's degrees, access to culturally diverse field trips, chances for children to work in teams and solve problems, chances to work in well-equipped facilities, chances to participate in student government, and access to teams and clubs to broaden social experience. Most families in this country can't provide all of this. Which brings me to my final comments. There are already enough divisions in our country based on class and identity, and becoming the exceptional country, a melting pot country, by joining and becoming one community with a shared culture and experiences. The school experience is one thing that still brings us together as a country, as a people. It was Theodore Roosevelt who said, "To educate a man in mind and not in morals is to educate a menace to society." Many homeschoolers share this sentiment when it comes to public schools, believing that the moral relativism, violence, peer pressure, drugs, and promiscuity found inside their gates provide an inadequate settings to properly socialize their children. Yet 92% of superintendents believe that home learners are emotionally unstable, deprived of proper social development, and too judgmental for the world around them, according to the California study by researcher Dr. Brian Ray. For these reasons, we affirm the proposition that homeschooling should be banned and suggest we focus instead on the best of both worlds compromise of school and school learning that has been done in the last nearly 2 centuries in this country. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chase Webb, and I am arguing against the resolution that homeschooling should be banned because homeschool children receive too little socialization. Over the course of this debate, we intend to use statistics and reasoning to prove that traditional school is an ineffective environment for learning social skills, and that homeschooling better equips children with the tools they need to succeed in social situations. Before we begin, I would like to define the term socialization. Socialization is the process of learning to interact appropriately with other members of society. My first contention is that adults who are homeschooled and much more socially engaged than their traditionally schooled counterparts. A 2003 study by Dr. Brian Ray of the National Home Education Research Institute surveyed a group of over 7,000 adults who had been homeschooled. Dr. Ray's study found that 71% of the surveyed homeschool graduates participated in an ongoing community service activities, such as coaching a soccer team or volunteering at a school, compared to just 37% of their traditionally schooled counterparts. An even more revealing comparison, Ray found that a staggering 88% of the homeschooled graduates surveyed were members of an organization, such as a club or community group, compared to only 50% of their traditionally schooled counterparts. These results were echoed in a 2009 study founded by the Canadian Center for Home Education, which showed that homeschooled individuals are constantly more engaged in almost all aspects of civic participation and tend to go into social fields such as trade, social services, and business. This scientific evidence shows that homeschooling is better for socialization than traditional schooling. My second contention is that traditional school is not an effective environment for social skills. Subpoint 1. The rigorous schedule of traditional schooling leaves little time for socialization. After all, traditional students spend most of their time on campus being silent in a classroom and spend a significant portion of their time off campus doing homework. This highly invasive and time-consuming schedule greatly reduces the amount of time that young children could spend socializing with others. Homeschooling, on the other hand, generally boasts a far more flexible schedule, meaning that homeschool children are afforded much more time to associate with others and build their social skills. My third contention is that children often receive negative socialization in traditional school. According to the National Center for Education Statistics and the Bureau of Justice Statistics 2011 School Crime Supplement, almost 30% of U.S. students in grades 6 through 12 experience psychological and physical bullying. This destructive trend in traditional schools is the result of forcing children to associate with their peers just because they were born around the same time. Homeschool children, on the other hand, are able to associate with friends of all ages based on their individual merits. This is a much more accurate representation of the social life they will have as adults. Thank you.
Two men crossfire.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
In your third argument, you stated that spending time around adults, rather than children their own age, is better for a child's socialization. Why is that?
You said, ask the question again?
In your third argument, you stated that spending time around adults, rather than children their own age, it's better for a child's socialization. Why is that?
We did not state that. May I ask a question?
Yes.
In your constructive, I only heard you use one source of evidence, which was a poll of school superintendents' personnel opinions of homeschool children. Is this your only evidence to support your claims?
Yes.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
May I see your evidence card for Dr. Brian Ray's 2007 poll of school superintendents? May I ask you a question?
Yes.
Over the course of this debate, I have presented two scientific studies, both of which show that homeschool children are far more socially engaged and academically successful than their traditionally schooled peers. Do you disagree with these findings, and if so, why?
I do not disagree, but I do say if you combine both of them, you'd say that school is the better option.
May I ask you a question?
Yes.
We argued that bullying, a negative form of socialization, is more prevalent in traditional schools than in homeschooling. Do you agree with this line of argument?
name's Alex Gansel, and today I will be refuting my opponent's arguments. Now, I would like to begin this rebuttal by addressing my opponent's first argument, which was that adults who are homeschooled are more socially engaged. Now, their evidence for this was a 2003 study conducted by an individual named Dr. Brian Ray, in which he surveyed 700 adults who had been homeschooled. The results of the study found that such adults were more involved in social groups outside of school, such as churches or soccer teams or similar activities. However, I don't see how this really makes those homeschooled children more social. Well, I mean, it's great that they're getting involved in group activities like soccer and church, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're more sociable. They also stated that a 2009 study from the Canadian Centre for Education that homeschoolers are more engaged in social situations. However, my opponent did not provide a direct quote of this, and therefore I would urge you to disregard this evidence based on the fact that they could be paraphrasing it or otherwise twisting the words around to make it fit their argument. That study could in fact be arguing that homeschoolers, or public school children, are more sociable, but because they didn't provide a direct quote, anyway, you should disregard that argument. Now, their second argument, traditional school is not an effective environment for social skills because children are silent in the classroom and do a lot of homework and such things. However, I would like to remind you that homeschool children also have plenty of homework to do. If they're going to classrooms such as...
I'm so sorry. Okay, that was...
Carry on.
Anyway, okay. However, in their second argument, they say that children might be less social because in a public school environment, they have to be silent in their classroom, they have to do all this boring homework and stuff, and it makes them less sociable. However, a lot of homeschool programs operate under similar circumstances, such as C3 classes, speech and debate league, which I would not recommend to anyone, ever. Now, anyway, their point when they were making the second argument was that homeschooling schedules are more flexible, which means they have more time to spend with friends and that more sociable. However, if you're in a school, you're spending time with children your own age all the time. So I don't really see how you can make a homeschooling schedule that is more sociable than simply a public schooling schedule. Now, in their third argument, they stated that children often receive negative socialization in public schools by being bullied and stuff. However, very importantly, they didn't really state any evidence that children in schools were more bullied than children who were homeschooled. They stated that children in public schools are bullied, according to a Bureau of Justice Statistics school crime supplement, which they failed to provide the date and author for, and therefore they couldn't make it up. Now, they didn't provide any statistics on how often homeschool children are bullied, so, therefore, homeschool children could be even more bullied than those in public school. So for these reasons, I believe that you should agree with my side in this debate that public schooling provides a better social environment for children to grow up in as opposed to homeschooling. Thank you.
Sorry about the feedback. If that happens again, there's a switch on the microphone that will just turn it off immediately.
Do you have a Yelp page? Is this a 4-minute rebuttal?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so when you were beginning your argument, you stated that home learning happens whether children go to school or not, and exclusively educating children at home cuts off avenues of learning. Therefore, you said a school and home combination leads to the best overall result. This is a flawed argument because letting children broaden their life experiences is not necessarily a good thing. For example, by preventing children from using drugs or joining gangs, parents are blocking potential learning experiences for their children. Though traditional school is perhaps not as much of a negative influence as gang membership or drug abuse, it certainly does not improve a child's life, as we noted in our constructed. Your first contention was that traditionally schooled children get more social experience. You said that in traditional school, children learn to communicate and make friends, resolve peer conflicts, respect authority, and learn how to operate, etc., etc. I would note that all of these qualities can also be applied to homeschooling through activities like clubs, classes, groups, speakers league and debate league, etc. Homeschool children are able to build all of these skills just as well. And your second contention was that the addition of school experience means that children are exposed to diversity. You said that this leads them to build tolerance of others, etc. Now this argument might sound plausible to this audience. In fact, I think it's their strongest argument, but it does not hold water when you examine the evidence. Dr. Brian Ray's 2003 study found that homeschooled children were more civically involved than the general population across the board. This would indicate, at least to me, that they are more tolerant of others than their traditionally schooled counterparts. Your third and final contention was that some parents cannot provide children with optimal education. You said that in school, kids have access to teams, field trips, etc. that might not be quite as available to the less privileged families among us. The logic here is fascinating to me. You're essentially saying that, let's just use an analogy here, because a few people are disabled, the government should disable everyone else, because that will be more fair. This is, at minimum, an unproductive stance on the subject, and furthermore, you're not addressing our argument that traditional school is not a particularly good environment for anyone's socialization, whether they're privileged or not. We've already established that homeschool graduates are more socially engaged on average than their traditionally schooled counterparts, so perhaps the parents who aren't equipped to socialize their children correctly are the ones who put them in traditional school. You finished up by saying that in 2007, this Dr. Brian Ray fellow, who we actually also cited, found that school superintendents think that homeschooled kids are judgmental and unprepared. I would note that this survey was an opinion poll. All it proves is that school superintendents are wrongly prejudiced against homeschoolers. We have proved with scientific evidence that homeschooled children are actually more prepared for life in American society by almost any measure. We believe that scientific facts trump uninformed opinions, especially those of school superintendents. I would also want to cover a few things that you brought up in your rebuttal. First of all, let me actually cover Crossfire first. I would note that the person who was Crossfire in Trinity did not disagree with our evidence from Dr. Brian Ray. I would also note that the website that they are citing for their survey by Dr. Brian Ray is CBN News, which is a Christian news website that also has Ted Cruz's logo as part of their logo now, which, take that for what it's worth. Finally, I would like to note that the Brian Ray study we are citing was not conducted with 700 people, and I would also like to invite you to examine all of our candidate evidence as long as you would like. For these reasons, I would urge the judge to vote in favor of not banning homeschooling. Thank you.
All right, Price, let's stand.
All right. You have the time else.
This is standing crossfire.
2-minute crossfire?
Standing, yeah.
Is my opponent ready?
Yes. Is my opponent ready?
Quite.
All right. Let's begin.
I ask you a question.
Absolutely.
You stated that by preventing children from school children are more likely to do drugs and join gangs and other such negative social implications than homeschool children. Do you have any evidence that homeschool children don't do drugs and join gangs?
I did not state that. You're misunderstanding. This was an analogy I brought up, saying that putting kids in school will negatively affect them, but it's a learning experience. I'm saying that a learning experience is not always a good thing, and I was comparing that to drugs or gangs just as an analogy. May I ask you a question?
Certainly.
So you said that the Canada study was not cited, therefore we could be twisting the evidence. May I share the evidence cards with you?
Certainly.
Here is our first evidence card on civic participation. I think you'll find that homeschoolers, and this is the curve at the bottom of the page, you'll find that homeschoolers tend to float far above public schoolers. I'd also like to share with you the information from the bullying contention. It shows that almost 30% of school children encounter bullying in grades 6 through 12. That is from the Bureau of Justice Statistics.
I see. Right. Okay. May I ask you a question?
Yes.
How does being involved in social groups make a child more sociable? You know, as we previously stated, Our definition for socialization is the process of learning to interact appropriately with other members of society. Now, just because these individuals are involved in civic groups such as soccer teams and religious organizations, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are well learned in the process of being able to interact appropriately with other members of society. They could be completely socially inept in those civic groups.
Is there a question in there?
Yes. Do you have any? What is your evidence that being involved in a civic group makes a child more sociable?
Sorry.
Got this.
Chase.
Hey. Wait, don't do the grand crosswalk.
Hello, my name is Timothy Kashani, and I affirm the proposition that homeschooling should be banned in the United States due to lack of socialization. I will be delivering the final focus for the pro side of this debate. Arguing for banning homeschooling at a homeschool convention is like arguing for being vegetarian at a Texas cattle ranchers convention. But that's not going to stop us from doing the right thing and proving to you that homeschool children are dangerously unsocialized. We have demonstrated that children that go to public schools are much more socialized than children who are homeschooled, and homeschoolers are suffering from it even if they're not aware of it. Both public and private schools integrate socializing with education. They are designed to create social environments, whether it be a sports team, a school band, or even something as simple as lunchtime and recess. Homeschooling is fundamentally unpredictable when it comes to socialization because parents either don't have opportunities for their children to socialize, or even worse, they choose to avoid social opportunities for their children, whether they fear their child will be bullied, succumb to peer pressure, or simply that they don't want to let go of their child. Many homeschoolers Many homeschoolers are never exposed to the situations necessary to develop the socialization skills they need. Our opponents stand for a limited world where parents of varying ability decide the fate of their children and unintentionally harm their social skills, while our side stands for unlimited social opportunity for all children. For these reasons, we strongly urge a pro ballot. Thank you.
Is it 3 minutes, right? Okay. Opponents ready?
As will ever be.
Hello, my name is Victor Mashevsky, and I'm arguing against the proposition that homeschooling should be banned because children are not socialized. The two major points of this debate come down to my team's contentions, my team's major contentions, saying that children often receive negative socialization in traditional school, and adults who are homeschooled are much more socially engaged than their traditional school counterparts, versus our opponent's argument saying that lunchtime, recess, and once a week team sports is enough time to socialize for children, and that a combination of homeschooling and traditional schooling is best. I would like to point out that our evidence comes from trustworthy, peer-reviewed sources, whereas our opponent's evidence was taken out of context, was almost non-existent, and that their single and only evidence card was cited and formatted improperly, cited CBN, a Christian homeschool website, thus making it almost completely invalid. I would also like to point out that the definition that they gave for socialization was not trustworthy, and no source was given for that definition. Also, we are not forced to sit quietly during debate league. Julie did an awesome job in letting us say whatever we want, whenever we want it. The basic theme of this debate, then, can be narrowed down to public school regulated sourced socialization versus freedom and flexibility of association. To recap, I'd like to recap our arguments, unlike whatever they did, that our arguments were that the rigorous schedule of traditional schooling leaves little time for socialization, The format of traditional schooling discourages children from seeking associations with people who interest them. Children often receive negative socialization in traditional school, and adults who were homeschooled are much more socially engaged than their traditional school counterparts. In a pro world where if the pro side was given their way, there would be a vast amount of children growing up being bullied or bullying someone or encountering that on a daily basis, thinking that is okay. They'll grow up with poor social habits and will overall be not helpful to society. Whereas in a con world where homeschooling is not banned, a rather large percentage of children will be homeschooled, taking stress of public schools, allowing them to better educate and socialize the children whose parents are not able to homeschool them. To me, and I hope to all of you, that is a win-win situation. But that can never happen if homeschooling would be banned. Thank you.
Now, normally there would be a judge seated about where this table is here and flowing the debate and deciding, and sometimes there's even a panel of judges deciding who won the debate. But I thought today I would kind of throw it out to the audience. Now I realize it's a biased audience. So I don't want you to, say this team won or this team lost because this is not homeschooling. Actually, in speech and debate clubs that I run, there are winners and losers. That's just how it is. But what I'd like to hear from you folks today is what arguments did you find compelling on both sides? Were there some things that stood out to you that you felt, actually made you think a little differently or gave you a new insight or a new argument of your own?
So it is a lot like arguing gun control at an NRA convention. But I would maybe point out both sides lost because they didn't consider the option that traditional school also does not provide socialization along with homeschooling, not providing socialization, and both should be banned.
Well, that would be a counter plan, and a lot of times in debate there are like little niggling rules about what you're allowed to present and at what times. So we're basically just trying to talk about the specific resolution at hand.
I think it was great. I had so much fun. I used to do speech and debate, so it was awesome. It's like taking a flashback in time. Something that it triggered, oh wow, that's awesome, is the idea of bullying. Because I've actually seen that homeschool kids actually get frowned upon more because their peers think that they're not as bright, or there's a reason why they're in a homeschool, and it's interesting to see that point. I don't know who brought it up necessarily. I think you guys did. That children get more bullied in traditional schools, but it's for different reasons, though. Like, you can't escape individuals looking down on you. It's going to happen in life, but it's interesting to see how it happens, and it happens in every environment.
Great.
I spend a little time every month bullying my daughter.
She's doing her job as a good parent. Mark and I had to kind of split up the duties. I would be in charge of pushing them into lockers or things like that, and he would take care of swearing and things that I wasn't having.
Not to that extent. Oh my gosh, too funny.
Well, didn't these guys do a great job?
Yeah.
They only had a week to 10 days really to pull this together, and they did a great job, I think.
Let's be honest, we all did it at 2 a.m. last night.
So I want to thank you all, my competitors here. I think you did a terrific job. I'm really proud of you. Your commentary about speech and debate.
There are C3 classes.
There are some flyers outside if you're interested or want to share it with other people.
Can we ask questions of
Absolutely.
So I'm just curious, are you assigned which side you're going to be on? Because obviously in something like this, I'm going to hope that all 6 of you are pro homeschool.
Normally, in public forum debate, there's a coin flip. They need to prepare both sides of the debate to be ready to debate both sides equally. The coin flip happens, and one team chooses either to be pro or con, and the other team can then choose whether they want to be the first or second speaker. Because we didn't have a lot of time to prepare this in advance, to have both sides prepared, we decided in advance how we were going to do it, and just assign the groups. But normally, you do need to prepare both sides.
And do you know, what the other person's going to say ahead of time? Because I saw you guys, both sides, are taking notes so that when you did your counter arguments.
You try to anticipate.
Generally not, if it's a real term, but you try to anticipate.
Yeah, so what you do is you prepare what's called a block. So you think, oh, they might bring up this argument, so I'll write down that and pre-write a response to it. So I really thought a lot about what they were going to say, and so my rebuttal was almost all blocks. Very, very little of it was improvised.
Yeah.
Just
And it's
think
something
about what they're
because you're
gonna say.
preparing both sides, you really do know how to respond to the different things. But a lot of debate, surprisingly, is pre-writing the material. The winners will tend to be the people that do the most preparation in advance and really think through the topic.
He's got some experience of winning.
Many sleepless nights.
We actually did debate gun control at the SLAM meeting in June, and Alex was the winner of that one. Any other questions?
I have a question. So I didn't hear the argument on this side that homeschooling is not always possible for every family, and therefore it should be banned because it's not fair. And I wonder if you have a rebuttal for that.
So which argument are you talking about?
I mentioned
just
in
like-
mine saying,
Hold on a second. She's asking me if it's a fair.
I was just asking, but
They
it's like
brought up diversity. I don't think so much, or like
Money-wise.
socioeconomic
Yeah.
and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
yeah.
So the question was, could you repeat the question?
The question was, homeschooling is not always possible for every family to do because parents have to work and whatnot, and it's not always economical for the family. So therefore, it should be banned because it's not fair for.
Right,
Not
so I
everybody.
have a block written out for this. Your logic here is fascinating to me. You're essentially saying that because a few people are disabled, the government should disable everyone, so it's fair. This is, at minimum, an unproductive stance, and you're also not addressing the argument that traditional school is not a particularly good environment for anyone to socialize, whether they're privileged or not privileged or what have you. And I go on with it, but that's basically the rebuttal, saying that, just because some people are disadvantaged, does that mean that we should disadvantage everyone? Or just be happy that we have some people with an advantage and try to lift everybody else up?
Amen. Preach.
How many blocks did you have that you never got to?
I have 3 pages of blocks I never got to. I listen for, okay, there's this, every time you hear me like, that's me copying a block over into my rebuttal, like, they said that, oh, they said that, So there's 3 pages in here left that I didn't get to.
Wow.
I was ready. Yes.
Which do you find is the hardest role of all the roles in debate?
Rebuttal's pretty hard. I mean, the thing is, the easiest role is constructive, because you get to prepare that as long as you want. Rebuttal is a lot harder because you have to be doing it on the fly. You have, at most, your blocks, or if you didn't prepare, you did it the night before, you have a bunch of kind of lame blocks, so you have to do a lot of it on the fly, which is okay too, but it's better to have blocks. Then final focus, you can also write out a lot of that beforehand, but rebuttal is the diciest, so you really have to do it in the moment. Anyone else's thoughts on that?
Do you guys have any thoughts on what you're...
So Julia, who won?
What do you guys think?
You're the master.
You're the judge.
It was a very close debate. I feel like, speaker points might be split up a little bit, varying. I probably would give it to this side. I feel like there was, perceptual dominance going on, in large part with Price. I liked Victor's final focus. I think he did a good job, kind of summarizing the debate in a meaningful way, and summarized, kind of reminded us all of what the contentions were. I thought Trinity did a great job reading the case, and she managed to, the extra piece of evidence that you threw in there without any difficulty. I think the cross-examination, these guys were a little more dominating in that area. So, I would tip it a little bit towards this direction, but, I think you guys showed really well. Would you say it was like one side dominated? I would just say
Slightly.
They both brought good things. How'd you feel?
I'm not a judge.
Alright, well, if there are any other questions, you guys can stick around. We're going to be doing a TED Talk presentation next, where we'll be hearing 2 TED Talks and kind of a talk back to the audience, and talking with 2 speakers, and that starts at 3:30.
What is that?
Mouth reader.
Great.
Grab a flyer outside, share it with friends. We have 3 different clubs.
Sometime, yeah.
It's funny, you know, I'll tell them, like, yeah, I went to this debate and it was